Hi, I'm CoC. In this video, I'm gonna showcase my stats stacker Energy Blade Battle Mage Cyclone custom crit Firestorm Inquisitor. The current patch is 3.17 Siege of the Atlas. First, I'm gonna go over the links and the auras that you're gonna use with this build. The main 6 link is basically Cyclone, custom crit, Firestorm, increased crit chance, increased crit damage, and inspiration. For defensive link, I use an Immortal Call with cast when damage taken support, and I use a Wave of Conviction to apply like resist debuff. It's not really needed now because of the ascendancy, but you will also get quite a nice clear from that. For the auras, I use Clarity, Discipline, Precision, Defiance Banner, Determination, and Grace. I use a Stone Golem to have some kind of health regen without a flask. In my shield, I use a Mark on Hit Assassin's Mark. I use Frostbomb for healing denial, and I use a Flame Dash with Arcane Surge and Second Wind as my travel link. I'm gonna show my items that I'm using right now. I have a Shaper's Touch gloves that works very well with the strength and intelligence stacking. I have a Cirrus Helm that basically gives me a shit ton of armor, energy shield, and damage. I'm using an Astromantis amulet. I'm using a high energy shield base chest armor. I use a high energy shield boots with movement speed, and I use an energy shield base for like basically any shield that you can get. The best that you can get is a Shaper shield because of the recover percentage energy shield when you block. Right now I only have one gem, I think. I mean a jewel. This is the replica Conqueror's Efficiency. This is a must-have for most of the time you're gonna play this build. If you are very gimped, you can skip this, but yeah, just expect to use this most of the time. I'm also using Megalomaniac and a small cluster jewel to get the 1 reservation efficiency for Grace and for Determination. The Megalomaniac is only there because it can roll some extra mods that you can basically pick up for 1 travel point, which is a nice value. I managed to get an energy shield with Spell Leech, so that's kind of bonus. I was using a small cluster for Determination as well. As you can see, I'm using most of my gear as energy shield and armor. I don't really have evasion stuff, I think. This is kind of like an endgame-ish version of the gear. First, when you make the build and you start leveling as a league starter, which I don't recommend, or just basically starting new, you will probably just use armor and energy shield bases on like any slot that you can get, and you want stuff that has life on it. So basically, if you have bad gear, you want to gear for life. The energy shield is only there for an extra. You will scale that later on to have damage and survivability, but first you just want to have some, like, I have 3k life for, I don't know, for 5 days now, and it's working fine. It's okay. You can die to some stuff, but generally it's fine if you start getting an energy shield. Leveling with the build is quite simple. When you start, you can just get a freezing pulse from the vendor. This one, you can get it on like right after the first mission. I mean a quest. You will have to buy it from the vendor for 1 wisdom scroll because you don't get this as a quest reward. You can play with Frostbolt, but Frostbolt is kind of slow So it might be better or faster, or it just generally feels better to play with freezing pulse. After you get Act 3 library, you can buy your Firestorm gem, or sometimes during the act you get it from the quest reward. If you get it, you can play that as a self-cast version, and you can basically play that even up until the maps. I would recommend not changing to custom crit energy blade unless you get 50% crit, but then you will have to use precision to get your hit rating up, and you will have to either use 2 mana flasks or just get the jewel I was showing before. This replica conquers efficiency. I would recommend playing self-cast until you can get this. I managed to get it for relatively cheap because I was leveling very early. So basically I got 2 maps without sleeping, which was like 7 hours or 8, which may sound kind of slow for people, but that's generally my pace, so I wasn't any slower than usual. For the flasks, I'm using a Divine Life flask with Corrupted Blood immunity on use. I also like to use that prefix that also gives some health back instantly, so you can just tap it if you need some healing, but it also like heals a bit more after. I'm still using mana flask because there are some monsters in the game that drain mana from you, and obviously if you don't have mana you won't be able to like custom crit the Firestorm. So I'm kinda using this for now, but I might just take it off when the build functions without it. I'm using an Atziri Promise. This is just a damage flask. I'm using a silver flask, which is only needed if you get Awakened custom crit. If you don't have Awakened custom crit, you don't need this. You can just run 2 Quicksilver. This build relies on quite a few defensive layers. The main passive layers you have is armor, evasion, and energy shield. Right now, my character has like 17k armor and evasion. It's because of the grace and the determination and the defiance banner. I also have pretty good item bases that give some armor, so it's better to scale. Generally, if you use determination and grace, you want some gear that also gives the stat, so it scales better. It doesn't really make that much of a difference if you just have like determination with 0 armor gear on. The healing on the build is generally the life flask you have. You don't get hit too much, and you can get either like regen on the tree. You can get the Divine Shield Keystone, which gives you some regen. But yeah, generally you just use life flask. You just try to get energy leech on something, energy shield leech on something that you can get, and you can get percentage recover energy shield when block on a shaper shield. This is very expensive generally, and it won't be available on League Start for like 2 days at least. So don't try to rely on this when you make the build. I'm just trying to make it work. Later on, when you max it, you can get Watcher's Eye and some other stuff that gives you like either life or energy shield on hit, but that was like too expensive so far for me, so I didn't get any of that. The build generally works fine, but there are some stuff that can almost instantly kill you. What I noticed from playing is that you're very paper against projectile spam. I'm especially talking about the Ether of Word spawns. It can happen that you just run your map and like fucking 20 archers spawn and just buried you to that. You can die to that even though the build has some block chance. You can die to general chaos damage. This is either from hits or again stuff like poison puddles that monsters leave behind. Since you have very low health, I mean alive, it hits quite hard. So that's why I took a chaos wheel on the tree, so I don't run around with 60 chaos res. By the way, this build is not hardcore viable in this form. I'm just putting that out there. But yeah, generally the thing is you can die to is basically big dots, either like a bleed if you don't pot it off instantly, big ignites, poison, some projectile spam like if it's out of hand. I'm running Shakari to get some defense against poison, and I'm using Brine King so I don't get stunned or frozen. Basically it doesn't look that good if you read it first, but when you play it's basically you get maybe stunned once, and when the immunity comes off the pack is already dead, so you no longer need the stun immunity for that. Against bosses you don't really get stunned. For the map mods I usually reroll if there is something bad on it. You cannot do elemental reflect maps. I don't recommend doing no regen maps. I don't recommend doing reduce block chance maps, and I don't recommend doing minus max res maps, because like even though your character will work on those, but it's a very bad to play with. So if you can afford, just try to run on the other map or just reroll the one you have. I'm gonna talk about what I killed with the build so far. I managed to kill Shaper, Elder, Cirrus. I managed to kill every single Guardian there is, like all 12. I killed the mastermind. I killed all 4 new bosses, the 2 red ones and the 2 blue ones on alchemy rolled invitations, both above 70% quantity, but I would recommend just rolling away if you get an extra projectile, cast speed or attack speed on those. I tried Uber Elder, but I wiped because I was playing bad, and I wiped to Maven because I put the void zones into the middle and I couldn't reach with Cyclone, so I couldn't really damage the brain without getting degened. I'm gonna show you the skins I'm using for this build. I'm running a Stygian Necrolord set with the wings. I'm using Stygian weapon effect. I'm using a Misery character effect, Misery footprints, and the Misery portal effect. This is basically like a fused one from the Misery RNG box. I'm running a Stygian Firestorm, Blue Cyclone, and the Black Flame Dash effect. For the weapon I use Misery weapon, and for the shield I use Zenith shield. I think you should use the Stygian Firestorm effect because you can see better with it. I'm gonna show you how it looks. This is the Stygian Firestorm, and I'm gonna show you without. This is without. So I think it's easier to see what's on the map if you use the blue version. You can argue it's pay to win, but yeah, if you can see with the red one, that's fine. I think I have some retardation that makes me not be able to see that well, but yeah, I'm using these. It's just less disturbing for my eyes. I'm gonna show some gameplay for you now. It's basically a map and a mastermind, so you can see how the build works in action. And once again, I would not recommend playing this build as a league starter because it can get quite hard if you cannot rush through the story.
They are coming.
Come on now, don't got all day.
Godslayer. be? This...
You
It's the
found me at
Forbidden
last?
Vault.
Very resourceful, Joan. I too am resourceful. Witness. Mortal. Give in, Joan.
No.
Feel death's
Why?
grip. Darkness
My
swarms.
family! Please! No!
See, we are no different, you and I. We both mortal. Darkness swarms. Feel death's grip.
No more games, Katarina.
There's
I'm
nothing
going
that
to
makes
kill
you
you.
feel so alive as death, is there? Now come to me, Joan. Let us see what your soul is. Hundreds of dead rotting soulless in the earth. What a meaningless waste. But your souls, yours will serve. Mortal. You try and try and try to break us, and yet the Syndicate is immortal. Do you think this will end any differently? Without you,
I
Giannis, the
wouldn't be
Syndicate
here
would
if I
never
didn't.
have formed, and for that I must thank you. But you will not be missed. Your soul burns for me. Kulamak! Arise, my children. Death will never come for an immortal.
You're no
Feed.
immortal. You're a thief! Nothing more!
Can you hear them, Aisling? The souls of those you mutilated scream for your death. At last their wish is granted. Your soul burns for me. Kulamak! Submit. Let our souls become entwined.
We must persevere! Too much hinges
Your
on this!
ancestors are waiting for you, Haku, but you will not see them. For this, I am sorry, old friend. Your soul burns for me. Give your soul to me. Kulamak! Arise, my children. Your hopeless cause will destroy you. Feed!
My cause fuels me!
Such a long, faithful life you've lived. Alrion, I'm sorry you will never get to see your god. Your soul burns for me. Don't do this, Exile. Stop! I can bring them back. Jonah, I can bring your entire order back. Just give me...
Shut up! Then...
I must have time to gather my will.